Hello, welcome to the Entrepreneurs Network. I'm Rick Anthony. Chances are that unless you've been in the labor market recently, you probably don't know what a staffing company is, nor are you familiar with the phrase from temp to perm. Well, my guest today, Kenny Dubin, who is the founder of the Dubin Group, is going to explain to us what a staffing firm is and what it means to go from perm to temp. Kenny, welcome to the Entrepreneurs Network.
Thanks for having me, Rick. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. I think I am correct in that most people, until the last few years particularly, probably weren't familiar with what a firm like yours does. They're more familiar with a search firm, a typical search firm, that places permanent people in permanent positions at all levels. They probably don't know the difference between a retained firm and a contingency firm. We can talk about that a little bit as well. But as we always do, you're a local, kind of.
Non-mainline.
Where did you come from? Where did you go to school? And how did you stumble into the staffing business?
Well, I grew up outside of Northeast Philly in a town called Lower Moreland, Huntington Valley, and a lot of the mainliners think the world ends at Route 1 in the Schuylkill and it's an abyss that you just dive into. But there is the world outside of the main line. And I wound up going to Penn State, got my BS in accounting, got my CPA, was with a large firm called Laventhal and Horvath that has disbanded back around 1990. In any event, I was a staff accountant for a couple years, hated it, but my dad said, get a degree in accounting because you can do whatever you want with it. So, and this is coming from a high school graduate that was smoking cigarettes at 7, telling me what to do. So, in any event, I got my degree, I got my CPA, and I told a staffing firm, find me a job where if I bust my butt, I can make money. And that firm's no longer around, but I wound up working for them in 1988.
That was a search firm?
Search firm. I did direct hire placement of accounting.
Right.
And that was my background, so I knew the buzzwords, I knew what firms were looking for, and I just had to learn the sales side of it. And I wound up working for them for about 5 years. Then I learned the temp side, which was new to me, and that has morphed into a huge behemoth giant nowadays with the economy and labor market, which we'll discuss in a couple minutes. And in 1998, I formed the Dubin Group, which specializes in accounting, administrative, and HR placement of temp to hire, and direct hire in the Delaware Valley.
And do you use a staffing firm and search firm interchangeably? Are they the same?
Yeah, I mean, headhunter, a lot of people call us. Some of my clients call me the necessary evil because they use this because they have to, not because they want to, and I get that. A search firm versus a staffing firm, a lot of times the idea of a staffing firm is a temp, get a temp in there, search firm is direct hire. I think it's all morphed into one at this point. I think the differences would be the retained versus contingency. A retained search firm is where you pay a third of the salary up front. You're looking for a $200,000 person, you're talking a $60,000 fee up front. Where I'm a contingency search firm, for the most part, where I get paid if I find someone. So it's all or nothing.
You do, most of your work is temporary to permanent?
Revenue-wise, 65–70% comes from temp. Profit-wise, 50% comes from direct hire.
And is that a trend that you see in the market generally?
I think that started a couple years ago. What had happened was...
More people hiring temporary?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people out of work. It's a philosophy, you're going to buy a car without driving it. You know, you're going to test drive it. So they're test driving. The misnomer has become where my clients say, hey, there's 1 million people out there, just get me someone. There might be 1 million people out there, Rick, but that does not necessarily mean that there's 1 million good people or that there are people for exactly what you're looking to do. So it's tough. You have to educate your client.
How is this market, the greater Philadelphia market, from your standpoint, and what you do, staffing?
Well, I was going to answer the grocery market, but if you want staffing market, I'll talk about that. The Acme's great.
Whatever you're expert in. Whatever you're expert in.
The produce was fine. As far as the staffing market, it has come back significantly. 2008 is the cutoff. That's when it hit the fan. I came back Labor Day, and it's as if someone shut off the lights. 09 and 10 were not good. 11 got a little better. 12 was a good year, but not what it was in the 2006, 7, 8 years. It's coming back. The clients now are saying, I need someone. I have been without an HR manager. My executive assistant has done it for 3 years, but we're growing now. I need a recruiter. I just want to staff up because they pare down to nothing. So they'll say, I need a recruiter because we're growing. Who's going to recruit? So they'll use me and they'll say, I need a recruiter for 90 days to fill our positions. Get me someone. So I'll get them someone, maybe 45, 50 bucks an hour. And they'll staff the positions. And when they're fully staffed, they let them go. And that's what they need going in. But the accounting side, I'm doing a lot on the confidential replacements where people are saying, you know what, I've weathered the storm. My CFO is not that good. My controller led a culture of working 9 to 5, and that's not what accounting is. I want to get a new controller, but I can't be without. Find me someone confidentially, and then once they're on board, I can let the other person go.
What impact will Obamacare, in your opinion, Obamacare have on employment, since we hear more and more stories of large employers particularly, who are refiguring their workforce so that they have more people working under, what is it, 20 hours or 30 hours?
I think it's 20.
20 hours? So they don't have to give them benefits.
I'm not a healthcare expert, but I can tell you it's going to hit me too, because I have temps that are technically my employees. And I think also the magical number, I believe, is 50.
It's 50, yes.
So my employee count might be 75 on a given week, 80, 90, depending how many temps are out, plus my 10 or 15 internal employees. So I'm going to get hit just as much. And it's a process where a lot of clients are saying, you know what, I have 40 people. I want a couple temps, let them be on your payroll, you'll take the brunt of it, and they don't count to the 50.
Have you figured out how you're going to get yourself off the horns of that dilemma? You want your business to grow.
We only have a half hour, right? I don't know. I'm reconfiguring as my clients are. It's going to be a tough road. I don't know what I'm going to do. My renewals are March. So I'll worry about it probably next January, but I got to start thinking. I mean, it's going to hit me. I just don't know what's going to happen.
It's one of those unintended consequences, I think, of that particular piece of legislation.
Yes.
And we haven't seen the beginning of the impact that's going to have on just about every aspect of our life.
True.
Now, we're talking about a trend, a single trend that seems to be developing, and that is there was a time, even before you got into the business, but certainly early on, when employers would seldom think about hiring a temp. I want somebody I can bring in, train, becomes part of this organization, hopefully will stay with me for a while because I'm going to make an investment in that person, and I want to get a return on the investment. That philosophy is changing now. Employers seem to have been reconciled with the fact, I'm probably going to have a contingent workforce, a transient workforce maybe, particularly with the millennials. And the predictions are millennials will have, what, at least 7 jobs, 15 different careers, who knows what.
You threw a lot of meat I can digest right
now.
We'll
ahead.
Attack one at a time.
Chomp away.
First, I believe that the marketplace has migrated to temp to hire. The first aspect, when I first got in the business in the 80s, the average tenured employee was 3.1 years. Now that included seasonal workers, that included transient workers, the agricultural side, what have you. That number now is down to between 0.8 and 1.2.
Is that right?
Which means that the average employee stays for 1 year.
Wow.
So clients say, well, I'm not going to pay you a fee of 5, 10, 15, 20,000 on top of their salary for them to stay a year. Now, if we dissect that number and look at the white collar versus the blue collar, agriculture, what have you, it's closer to 2.5 years.
But even that.
Horrible.
That's the average.
Average.
You know what the median is?
I do not know that number off the top of my head, but the average is somewhere around 2.5 years. Now, that plays into a lot of different fields. One, if you're growing up and you see that your mother or father is only working a couple years at each job, that transcends into their culture. Now, my family, I have a father that's worked one career since I've been alive, his entire work history. So I don't see the transient nature in my household.
Yes.
I don't want my kids to see that because you look at the millennials, the Generation X, Y, Z, and that could be another program where they say, well, you know, I'll work for 1 year here. I'll go to New York for a year. I might work temp here. I want to be a musician for a couple of weeks. I want to be a television producer. I want to be a benefit consultant. They're all over the place. So how, A, do they become an expert? B, they have no work history that I consider with longevity. And C, it's not going to allow us to grow companies the way we did in the past. It's going to be very, very hurtful to the economy going forward.
But the market doesn't seem to care as much as they used to. When I was doing a lot of HR consulting,
Right.
and therefore working with recruiters and staffing kind of people and so on, we were talking about training and employee benefits and retention programs and all of those kinds of things. They really scrutinize the resume. Of course, resumes are different today than they were back then as well. But they really scrutinize a resume. Now, it's all automated. If there aren't a couple of key words in a resume, they don't even look at them.
Sure.
And the process has speeded up, is certainly more efficient, but it seems to be geared for just exactly what you're talking about. A transient workforce that will come through, make a contribution, and move on.
That applies a lot in the IT world where they have a project. It's project-based. They want to write a program for something. They'll take someone that might have done a consulting project in Sacramento but says, hey, you know what? I'm single. I want to see the East Coast. I'm going to come to Philly, learn about Philly. Then when I'm done this project in 6 months, I'm going to go to D.C. Then I'm going to go over to India. Then I'm going to go to London, see the world on someone else's dime. I do believe that what you'll see when they pick apart resumes, they do look at keywords, absolutely. They do a Boolean search. They look, they see, oh, I need someone that has SAP. Well, they want to see SAP on the resume. So it's not on, they're not going to get picked. But then you go even deeper and you say, if I want someone that's potential temp to hire, I'm going to try them out. I have a bank reconciliation project. Wow, they're good. I want to keep them. They don't want to see a job a year. They don't want to see someone that doesn't have a degree. They don't want to see someone that has typos on the resume. The biggest one that I see is manger, M-A-N-G-E-R. That is a word. The manger, Christmas time, it's big, but they're looking for a manager. Well, when MS Word doesn't pick up the typo, and I see a manager that's a manger, that's problematic. And that, to some people, well, it's okay, it's only a typo, but if that's the one thing that represents you going in the door, it's unacceptable to have anything but perfection.
But are employers lowering the standards? Because there are more and more resumes like that, where the reliance is on spell check. And you don't, first of all, if you know how to spell. Second, if you know how to put a sentence together, we won't even go there. Which brings me, though, to the question, are you concerned about the current and future crop of job seekers?
Yes, I'll be concerned for the next 20 years until I'm done working, and then my kid's problem. But it's problematic, Rick, in a couple areas. One, that if that becomes the acceptable norm, I fear for the future, and I know it's such a cliche to say, but you have to make sure that the kids coming out of school know how to spell, know how to do arithmetic. I mean, that's just the basics. You can't rely on Excel to just do the formula and say, all right, we're fine. You know, you got to dive in. If you're doing analytical work, you have to understand the numbers, not accept that, okay, well, that's what it is. You have to be devil's advocate. You have to bring up the other side. If you dig in deep, you can't accept the norm. You know, how are things going to be created? New ideas. First, secondly, I think a lot of my clients are on the fence. They say, well, it's one typo. You know, and I'll tell them, no, not accepted. What happens when they're doing your books? You know, if they're an accountant, or it's your executive admin that I'm filling the job, and they're proofing your paperwork to go to a potential client, there's a typo, you lose a deal. So you have to educate the client on what's acceptable. Now, another term which I'm going to bring up, which is very uneasy, is entitlement. A lot of these new grads feel, all right, I'm entitled to do what I want. You know, they want to, all of a sudden, they want the transparency of the organization, and they want to see what's going on. Well, there's things that are acceptable to let kids know, new employees, but there are things that I'm paying the bills, I'm paying the rent, I don't have to tell you my next move. And that fine line is tough to get new employees. I mean, the new employee comes in and says, I'm working 9 to 5. Well, it's not a 9 to 5 world anymore. Check your email at night.
Well, it is for the millennials for the most part. And to some extent for the some portion of Generation X. They work to live. I live to work still. You live to work.
I live to work, but I also live for the shore. So I do want to hit the beach occasionally.
But you work hard, and you're willing to make the investment so that you can enjoy the time off.
I believe my philosophy, whether it's right or wrong, is I work to afford what I want to do on my time off. So if I want to go down the shore, I want to go on vacation, I bust my butt before and after. And the people that, I don't want to say our generation, we're a little age difference, but the people that have been working for 10, 15, 20 years and more, they go away on vacation, they know they got to put in extra hours before and extra hours when they come back.
And maybe take it with you.
Oh, absolutely. You know, now you're looking at your phone, you're checking email. You cannot be as proactive, but you can certainly be reactive when you're away, unless you're on a safari in Africa with
Yeah.
no cell service. You're traveling to Orlando or Disney World. You can do check-in note before you go on the rides.
You're still on the job.
Yeah.
You may not be at work, but
No.
you're still
yeah.
on the job.
So you don't pile up with stuff to decide when you get back.
You know, I'm guilty of something. I just made a generalization about the millennials, that they work to live. That's certainly not true of all of them.
No, it's a generalization, but that's okay.
Yeah. But as a group, 80 million of them.
Right.
They're okay. Is it, in your opinion, I mean, you see a lot of talent, a lot of resumes. Is it as important and critical today to have a college degree to make a good living?
Let me say the stats that I've heard,
Yeah.
and I'll let the audience decide that. I think I heard 48% of the last year's college grads are underemployed.
Yes.
I interviewed and talked to, not interviewed, but I talked to a gentleman whose daughter went to Brown and said that, and this is 2010, so in 2011, a year after graduating, 1 in 4 were not employed.
From Brown.
From Brown. Okay, and I'm not saying it Brown, I mean, that's creme de la creme.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure they are working. I mean, that was when the economy was at its worst.
Yes.
Westchester University, a local college right here, I interviewed a girl from their accounting program. 21 graduated. 1 got a job in accounting, and this was 6 months ago. Now I hope more. So, in my opinion, a bachelor's degree is a bare minimum now.
Yes.
There are people that are a bachelor's degree that are, and they're working, but they're working retail. They're pushing the red carts at Target because they can't get a job. Think about the high school graduates, and I see these high school graduates coming into my offices, and I'm not, look, they got their degree, they busted their butt, they might have come from a broken home. They can't get anything. So, yeah, bachelor's at a minimum.
I agree at a minimum that you have to have your ticket punched.
Yes.
But it doesn't guarantee anything. But aren't there a number, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent.
Fine.
Aren't there
Your program.
aren't there a number of people, both young and older, who probably should go to a trade school, should not waste their time in college because they're not going to get that much out of it, and go right into a trade, into an apprentice program?
Absolutely. I mean, Ronnie Dangerfield
and make a very good living, much better than many of the college graduates.
Ronnie Dangerfield said the world needs ditch diggers too, from Caddyshack, right? Great movie, 1980, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I will say this: college is not for everyone. And my kids, I don't care what they do, but they're going to get a degree and then go on. But trade schools, I mean, they're the tech schools. If you know that you want to be an auto mechanic, and everyone needs an auto mechanic, you know, I'm not knocking that. I mean, you need one. Maybe you don't go to get a bachelor's. Go to a trade school. Learn, hone in on your expertise. The HVAC, when your heater's out and it's 3 degrees outside, you want someone there? Well, someone has to be trained in order to be able to fix your heater, and you better not piss on their parade because you need them. And I want someone that's trained. I want someone, if that's the route you want to go, or you want to go in the military. They don't need, right now, the recruiting for the military, I don't want to say it's non-existent, but so many people are going into the military because they can't get jobs. Then they come back out, and then they can decide what they want to do, and they have 4 years in the military.
Or maybe the combination of a 2-year community college, an associate degree, and then decide whether or not you want to continue or go into a trade. Once again,
it gives you a benchmark.
Plumbers, good plumbers, good carpenters, these people are always in demand, I would think.
They never return my phone calls. They
don't
never return my phone calls when I need something, but
And they seem to always be going back to school, learning the new techniques, the new skills, the new technology that's being used.
Sure.
I've often wondered, I mean, our 5 kids went to school, college and so on, and then graduate school in a couple of cases. But with our 15 grandkids, I wondered whether all of them should go to college. Not that they can't get in, but is that really something they want to do and will satisfy their needs and prepare them to be good citizens, make a good living, make a contribution, and so on? I don't know.
It's the path they decide to take. You can only help them so much. It's a shame. I mean, I look at, and you said plumbing, and you know, your toilet's backed up. You have plumbing issues. I don't care if they have a college degree or not. I want them to be a good plumber. So whatever you decide to do, just make sure you're good at what you do.
We have a small leak right now.
I
not
can't
quite
help
sure
you.
where
I
it's
can't
going.
even change light bulbs.
Okay. But I'm going to call the plumber.
Right.
Huh? I'm going to pay as much for him to put a solder, a piece of, whatever up there, as it does to extract a tooth. My dentist.
Right.
They're getting really nice money these days.
Both are painful to you, aren't they? Right?
Yeah, but at least with a dentist, he can give me a shot of Novocaine.
Yeah.
The pain goes away.
Sure.
The pain won't go away here.
Right.
I
Well,
gotta
once a leak is fixed, because that caused other secondary damage. Now you got wallboard issues, and you got the roof and what have you.
No, thank God, it's in the basement. It's just
Okay.
We've talked about the profile of the applicant. Talk a little bit more about what employers are looking for. And let me put it in context for you. All the surveys that I've seen and the anecdotal evidence I have, companies are saying we need more creativity, more innovation, find us the people who can take us to the next level. That's what they're asking for. In your opinion, do they know what they're asking for? Do they really know what they're looking for? Or is there still some disparity, a gap between what they say and what they hire?
I was just at a seminar last week that said, and it was commented on, that if you have a meeting within your company, you better make sure someone under the age of 30 is in on that meeting. Because that person, while they might not have all the business acumen you need, will have ideas, fresh ideas, technology that you are not thinking about it at 48 and your age respectively 49. So, so you want to make sure.
You lie well. Very
thank you.
convincing. Yes, I appreciate it.
No problem. So you have to make sure that you bring some younger talent to the table to hear about ideas, because they're going to give you innovative ideas that they just learned or that's out there. They are the ears, the eyes to what the future is. So I do want to hear about the fresh ideas. Now, you don't have to implement everything, but you certainly want to hear about it, so this way you're not caught blindsided that, well, we didn't even think about that. You know, you put an idea in place, a multi-million-dollar operation, and you come up with this grandiose idea, and there's one aspect you didn't think about, and it's all for naught, or it's outdated in a year, big problem.
What will your business and people like you, what will your business be like in 5 years? Let's assume the economy does come back, and continues to be a demand for talent.
I think, based upon studies I have seen, the talent in the accounting field is going to be very limited, because right now there are not enough people. A client in media was looking for a staff accountant. They interviewed 18 people. She told me 15 of them, English was a second language.
Wow.
So, and I'm not knocking, I mean, I only know one language barely. So, you know, that's great, but when they're the interface between them and a client, they want someone that has that ability to communicate efficiently and effectively. So the lack of talent is going to be there in certain areas. I think it will be a lot more of temp, which means I'll make my markup and move on. A lot of times it'll be temp to hire. You know, you have them out there for 6 weeks, they prove their worth, we want to hire them, pay a small conversion fee and move on. We are attracting talent constantly. We're interviewing people every single week. We're filtering out the less than desirables, so my clients only see good people. Now, I believe that the technical side, the education, that's a given. It's culture. It's how they are. It's how they're perceived. So you have to hone in on interview skills. You have to hone in on what they're really looking for, because resumes, people lie on resumes. You know, absolutely. You look at their resume. I look at maybe 50,000 resumes, 40,000, 25,000 a year. I'm looking at a couple hundred every single day. It's easy to lie. You know, you look for the shortcuts.
It's stupid, because if somebody does a background check the way they do them today, I mean, everything is disclosed. Everything can be found out.
What's not disclosed when you talk to a client now, because of the litigious nature, the environment we're in, they might just tell you the times they worked. That's it. This person, Johnny, worked from November to December 11 to 12. That's it.
So they don't look like job hoppers. Or to fill in gaps of unemployment.
Yeah, they'll do different things, you know. So a lot of my clients don't even want reference. They go on their gut. Good, bad, or indifferent. Yeah, they'll interview someone and say, you know what, we loved him. He won us over. Now he could be the biggest liar in the world. But if, you know, I have
to. That is a crapshoot.
Sure it is.
Do they then do a background check?
Some do a background. I mean, it's easy to, right now you can do a criminal check by county in 24 hours. Statewide takes 2 or 3 days. We're talking all total $49. Credit check, $12. If you invest on the high end, $89, you can have a complete background on who they are.
What percentage of your clients, your employers, check Facebook and other social media?
A growing number, I would say minimum 25 to 50%. Some don't. If it's a good young HR person, I hear, well, we looked at their Facebook. One person sent me a picture of a candidate from another agency that was sent to him.
Right.
The kid might have been 23, parting of his Facebook, had him drinking a huge thing of beer, I think inebriated, and he said, we're passing on him. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Or you have an interview, make sure your outgoing message on your cell phone is business professional.
Yes.
You don't want to hear some rap music with a pause.
Yeah.
Big problem.
I heard just this week of a person who was hired in New York by an ad agency. And what I was told was one of the conditions of employment was that she not have a Facebook page. And I didn't know an employer could make that a condition of employment.
I don't know
Not even a personal Facebook page?
I don't know if they can, but if that's one of the conditions of employment, and you sign off on it, then you don't. I mean, it's a touchy area. Remember the case where they wanted their passwords. One company wanted their passwords. That's illegal. It's tough. I mean, I know that before Facebook, there was that other site. Forgot what it's called, but where they were posting tons of things of drinking and partying, and I have clients that didn't hire because of that.
It's so stupid. And the kids, of course, have no sense of the consequences they're going to pay next year, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years out.
Once you
that
put
stuff
on the
doesn't
internet,
go away.
it's there forever. I mean, look at the ink that's up and down arms and their necks and all that.
Don't even go there.
Yeah.
That's a business. It's removing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, those businesses are doing very well.
They'll do very well for the long term.
You got it.
Yeah.
Do you advise your candidates, I'm sure. Do you have different advice for younger candidates than older? And are you seeing more and more 50-plus boomers who are looking for work, either perm, part, whatever they can get?
It's a frustrating topic, Rick. I have clients that I empathize with them. They were controllers at a company making 125, 150, whatever the numbers are relevant to the story, and they're lost.
Yes.
You know, I haven't had a job in a year. I'm about ready to lose I'll take anything. The word flexible is what comes to mind. You have to be able to say, all right, I know what I was making, but that was the past. What can I accept? I don't want to hear, well, I have to pay off a shore house and I have a house. That's not my issue. My issue is making sure that I can better you in some capacity. If you're realistic on your expectations and you can set the expectations that, all right, I know what I was, this is what I can live with, let's look. And it's touchy. I mean, I have controllers call me nonstop. Or an executive assistant that was making $85,000 working for the president of a steel company and said, hey, I would take 80. Well, guess what? If I can get you 60, it's a $60,000 raise. It's not 25,000 less. You're at zero.
Yeah.
Let's look at what you can do. So you can't take the trip to Florida twice a year. Cut it back to once a year.
Do you find that reality finally beginning to settle in? I mean,
yes.
We've been at this now for 5 years.
It is. It's the new guy that just got laid off because the company got bought out and they merged, and that new guy has to or girl has to understand what reality is. And reality, the perception of reality is skewed a lot of times. So it's a touchy, frustrating look. I'm 48, and the reason why I say that again is because I have clients that say illegally, I want someone in their 20s or 30s. I'm old to them already. You know, if I have to go out and look for a job, I'm in trouble. I have a CPA that lapsed. I don't even do my own taxes anymore. I mean, I'm sales. I'm in the business of selling people. But I got to make sure that I educate my clients on what is out there. And if they listen, I can get them good people. It's when a client says, well, you know, just send me resumes. That doesn't know anyone any good. You got to understand what they want.
You've got a full-time staff of people who are constantly sourcing for candidates.
They better be now.
Well, yeah. I mean, some other firms just use social media. They just use Facebook and so on and so on. You rely more on the
face-to-face.
Touch.
You can, and the analogy I always use, when you go to buy a car, you might go to a dealer and you might say, test drive it. You might call a couple other dealers and say, what's your best price? You're going to go back to the dealer that you met with. You saw a picture of his family behind you. You understand. Right. So I will give that guy. Yeah, you made a connection. Right. You talk to them. So the connection is there. Well, it's the same thing in my world. I want to interview the person. I want to look into their eyes, which I still do interviewing time to time. And I say, tell me what you really want. And you hear their heartache, and you really want to work for them. Whereas there are some agencies that pull it off the career board, the monster,
the job boards,
and they're just shooting resumes. And where is the service there?
We're going to have you back again to talk about other trends that you see developing in the workforce.
Love to be with you.
Thank you
very
very much
much.
for being
Thank
here.
you. It was a pleasure being here.
Until next time, this is the Entrepreneurs Network, and I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.